Hello, friends. It's me, Jamie, and welcome. It's also Camille. How are you?
Excellent, Jamie. I am very well. How are you? Thank you for this opportunity. I so love you for this.
Oh, are you kidding me, by the way? Thank you. We are about to dive into some really great conversation on a
Okay.
topic I love and I know so many in the industry also love. Welcome to the Rooted in Practice, why we are all here, where the work begins within and it's lived before we're offered. This is a practitioner first summit and it's focused on how we actually live the work we offer. We've been talking about movement, nutrition, hydration, nervous system support, an awareness on who we are, self identity for leadership and moving through life. We've been talking about an Ayurvedic lens and the pillars of health and how that aligns with a holistic lifestyle. But it isn't about learning to give more. This summit is really about absorbing the information and understanding how to build a sustainable, aligned practice from the inside out. So, for those of you that are enjoying these conversations, know that the HSA was created to support wellness practitioners beyond this event. I'm Jamie. I am merely the host today, a facilitator to some incredible conversations, but I too am an accredited educator and a practitioner, a holistic esthetician and a massage therapist. But one last little plug is that the HSA offers community education, business support, and we do this through many platforms, but we have a new ongoing membership that's about to launch. It's our founding members membership. You can find more information under holisticspa-alliance.com. We're going to draw one lucky winner to join the Circle membership. And if anybody joins, you also get it at a foundation membership rate for life if you join now. So without any further ado, though, Camille, welcome.
Yes, my dear. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so very much.
We again are talking about lymph health, lymphatic health, and detox support. But Camille, first of all, who doesn't know Camille? But for those that don't know, she's a lymphatic expert and the creator of the LFD, the lymphatic frequency detox. And that is how I found you. I found
Okay.
you on the open algorithm of TikTok, and I'm like, this chick is so cool. And then you're speaking my language,
Yeah.
and I just said this about the last person, but I mean what I'm saying authentically because you and a few of the women that I've pulled together, I have not met before. I've found you, I started following you, I cold called you, and you were so gracious enough to reply back. So thank you for that. But you have
Absolutely.
the most beautiful energy that you put out there to
Thank
all of
you.
us. And the fact that we're aligned in what we do just makes for me icing on the cake. So welcome again. Thank you. But let's start with you a little more before we get into the
Okay.
talk today. So I've
Okay.
formally introduced you, but tell us, who is Camille? Tell us a little
Okay.
bit more about you and
Okay.
share a little bit about your journey and what originally pulled you towards this work, please.
Sure. One, Jamie, I think you're amazing for putting this HSA together because we are literally on the precipice where people are starting to understand that something like an HSA is what they need to go and look for support in their health and well-being. So I think you're amazing for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me to this opportunity. So let me give you the short version because I was not someone who was looking for the holistic side of life. I am from a medical family. I have a step parent and all of my parents are physicians. My first 20 to 25 years of my life was spent in that Western space. I mean, from being a medical transcriptionist to a surgical tech to a radiology tech to a hospital administrator, name something in the Western space outside of being a doctor. It seemed like I did it. And there was all of this information in the system, but there were no answers for me. There was no why. Something would happen and a doctor would say, okay, well, do this. Okay, well, tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me why. And that was never answered. And my mother and I were actually introduced to the holistic side by accident. If I could say that, I shouldn't even say accident. I should say universally, a universal
Absolutely.
accident. You know, she decided to open up a med spa back in 2009. And we were introduced to a doctor by the name of Dr. Charles McWilliams, who to this day, to me, has got to be one of the most brilliant people on the planet. But he happened to be a European naturopath who had studied Chinese medicine for 40 years. And he had created this machine that he had implemented certain frequencies into that he was using on the aesthetic side of things. And we were introduced to this machine having no idea what frequency had to do with anything, which had to do with anything with life. But he created a machine that I literally watched him use on people that I thought were not going to be here long and watch them in real time change. And I was like, holy
Whoa.
bananas. That's it. I was like, that's the why. That right there, that's the why I have been looking for forever. And I didn't understand it at that moment. I didn't even care. What I did know was that I could not deny what I saw. And from there, the interest in frequency and the amazement in the logic, when you study the logic of frequency and the body and the lymphs, was something that I just went on a mission to study. The more I studied, the more I learned, the more I saw, the more I practiced, the more was proven. And from there, it hasn't stopped yet. And that was way back in 2009. It just hasn't stopped. The holistic side is literally the human side.
Absolutely. What does the name of the topic mean to you? It's inflammation, flow, and detox.
Perfect. So I think one of the things for me specifically is that part again of this Western side is that the idea of detox that we have been given is finite, right? People say, well, I'm going to do this 30-day or I'm going to do this 60-day detox and I'm good. But we're not, because we don't stop living. Life is a detox, but life lives in the lymph water. The flow of the lymph water is what allows us to detox. So when I talk about this inflammation, flow, and detox, inflammation is a stagnation of the flow that is required of the lymph water in order for us to detox. And that's the connection. I think we break things down so much compartmentally in our Western system. We don't understand that flow is required for us to live along this spectrum that we call life.
Without knowing it, our last speaker just touched upon that. So she was talking on nervous system regulation, and she was mentioning that she has a few ebooks, and the word lymph came up. And she's like, and I know that probably sounds weird to you, being that I just talked about nervous system regulation, but I don't think you can really regulate your nervous system if you do not have a properly flowing lymphatic system. And to which I said, well, then we need to all join in and listen to Camille here in the next little bit, because I shouldn't be surprised at how all of this has unfolded with all of the speakers over the last 2 days. We're all here for the same goal, but how
Absolutely.
all of this overlaps and one supports the other and one doesn't trump the other either. They all need to be in balance.
Exactly. And the fact that we have a system that compartmentalizes a unit, it is one unit, and everything has to function cohesively as that unit in order for us to stay in a state of wellness. Is that ideology that we can break things down is crucially detrimental, because I'm thinking if you take a system and you keep breaking it down, and that system is required for living, are you not breaking down our ability to live a high quality of life? Yeah, you are.
I want to start with a question that is obvious to what the title is, but I'm going to ask it
Sure,
to you anyways because I want to hear how you would break this down.
sure.
But why do so many symptoms, whether it's in the skin, whether it's pain in the body, fatigue, keep coming back no matter what we do? What is your
Perfect.
perspective on that?
Perfect. Because we don't understand what creates those issues. Yes. And that's part of our deprogramming from our connection to ourselves. So the body itself, like you just mentioned, functions as a unit. But what people don't get is there is a base functionality. So we always say cells control the body. We need cellular nutrition, and cells are the workhorses. Correct. But cells are fed by the lymph water. And if the lymph water is not flowing, cells don't eat, they don't talk, they don't breathe. And so we get to this cellular level, but the cellular level isn't the base. So if people are trying to affect the actual symptom, like I'm having pain or I'm having eczema or if I'm having a skin issue, they're affecting symptom based issues. But what lives directly under the skin? The lymph water. What flows life to the cells? The lymph water. What is pain? A stagnation of the flow of lymph water. And our lymph water, if it's still, is heavy. We're made up of 102 minerals that make up a type of salt. If the lymph water starts to flow, stops flowing sufficiently, that salt becomes like sand, which becomes heavy. And then the water can't get through the salt. And then the oxygen that is carried in the lymph water can't get through the salt. We get hot and the body hurts. So I think part of our issue, a huge part, is that we've been programmed to symptom instead of origin. The origin of all of it is water.
This is something that I work with, even as an esthetician and a
Sure.
massage therapist, of course, without the frequencies. But the way that you first introduced or gave that particular definition on how it works, it was an aha moment of my own on how to explain this to my clients. I had never heard it stated that way. We, of course, have definitions and why, but that for some reason it just resonated and it hit home with me. So I appreciate how you break down all of these aspects, and I want you to continue breaking a few things down, but first I want to
Sure.
back up. I want to get a little more personal first and find out
Sure.
how it became personal for you. What was your turning point of that first domino that fell? And if you don't mind and share only as much
Sure.
as you'd like, I know that there was something with your father that happened in there
Absolutely.
too.
Which was probably the absolute connector for me. Because one thing that I left McWilliams with when we had to go train with him and use this machine was that he said something that I didn't understand in the beginning. And then it kept coming up. And I was like, yeah, they say everything comes in threes, and here they come. One thing that McWilliams said to me in 2009 that stuck was the word inflammation. And in 2009, we were not speaking about inflammation anywhere. And we also weren't speaking about the lymphs. And there was something about inflammation that stuck with me, and I got it that next year. My father, who was an orthopedic surgeon, was diagnosed with what they call stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which had metastasized or spread to the bowel. And what was weird was that I never knew at that point the reason he was in that state, which now I can actually say. But when he was diagnosed 6 months after my very young stepbrother was diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer. And it was around this time when it seemed like all of these people that I knew were getting diagnosed with something that wasn't a virus. And I was like, cancer's not a virus. So why are so many people seeming to catch this diagnosis? And so I decided, Jamie, just to read. I read everything I could about cancer, whether I understood it or not. And just and solely because inflammation was on my mind from what I had heard from McWilliams, everything that I read without using the word inflammation described inflammation. And I was like, oh my God, wait, I have a machine that uninflames the body through this lymph system thing that McWilliams said was a thing. So if I have a machine that uninflames the body and cancer is inflammation, I wonder if I could use it on my father. And all I would have to do is take the machine to my father's house, who was already weakened by chemo, and I would touch him here in the thoracic duct where McWilliams had originally said the lymph system started, and he would instantly feel better. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, wait, hold on. Then I would take the machine to my brother's house, who happened to be in a wheelchair, and I would use it on his hands, and he would have more movement in his hands. And I was like, okay, so wait. So this whole inflammation lymph thing, that's a thing. And so from there, I just started trying things on myself, on my friends, and people's hair came back and their faces changed and they could breathe better. And from there, it was that spaceship. From there, when you have the body respond to you immediately, you can't call that wrong. You can't call that wrong. You can't say that's not a fact because you just watched whatever happened happen. That makes it truth. And from there, the body has not lied or led me wrong yet.
This is such incredible work conversation. Personally, you know that was chatting with you about, like, I cannot wait to come learn with you and really discover the full efficacy of this machine. It is top of my education to-do list. We've kind of uncovered when you realize inflammation and stagnation were at the root of so many issues. For you personally, and I know that you work directly on so many people, so whether this is an example for yourself or the clients you see, what do you notice on bodies when things are not flowing well versus when they are? So get into things like the swelling and fatigue, even brain fog. We know, like, the inflammatory aspect and how incredible. I mean, we could stop the conversation there, and that's incredible, but let's keep it going for the treatment rooms too.
Yeah, so it's funny that you asked me that, because one of the things, like you, that I like to do for my clients when they come in is teach. Yeah, because we're not doing anything for the client if we're not having them understand where they are. And so one of the things that my clients always come back to me and say is, oh my God, Camille, when I walk down the street, nobody is breathing. I can see everybody who has pressure issues, cholesterol issues. So yes, the swelling, the brain fog, when I tell people that there is essentially only one issue, I am very much a Sebi component in when he said he didn't believe in disease. I'm very much that, because everything is a result of the stagnation of the flow of the water. If we're thinking about skin, and the lymph water lives directly under the skin for a reason, anything that settles on top of the skin is indicative that the water is not flowing. Eczema or psoriasis is the mineral salt that is not flowing through, but the body is smart enough to try to get it out. Swelling in a body, one of the major issues we have is that people aren't told what healing actually looks like. When we have trauma and we bump ourselves or somebody hits us and we swell, swelling is the way the body sends its stem cells to become antibodies to an area. But healing doesn't come in one stage, it comes in two. So when we have swelling, swelling is normal. But the second part of that healing requires the same lymph tract to come back up and pick up that water that contains the damaged cells. So when people have issues over time after an injury, it's not the swelling that's a problem. It's the fact that the lymphs are moving too slow to come and pick up the damage. And that damage then settles into tissues and becomes things like scar tissue, or what a doctor would call an infection. So we have to get, the body has a flow. There's nothing in the body that happens once. It has to happen in a flow of motion to complete its objective. And we, in this compartmentalized state of Western medicine, think that things happen isolated from everything else, and they don't. So everything is a symptom: swelling, brain fog, skin issues, vision problems, hearing problems. Everything is a symptom of a stagnation of the flow of the water. But our comfort should come from knowing that all of it has one origin. That's it. It's just the water. We have to fix the water.
We're going to get into a few different ways. I'm
Sure.
getting a little ahead of myself, but
Sure.
I first saw you using the Himalayan salt. And immediately I knew the benefits of Himalayan salt. I have it at home. I have the salt blocks here. And sometimes it just takes somebody else to plant the seed and put the two concepts together. I now use salt blocks and facials. They go in the armpits, they go behind the knees, they rest in certain areas based on, and my clients are pretty cool. I can try new things on them, but they're like, so what are we doing here? Was kind of some of their first questions. And of course, as we talked about it, I got the same response though, which was, wow, oh my God, just via text, like rings that I couldn't get off in years have come off my body just in its most simplest form. Swelling, I think, has been the number one thing that people recognize, but it's that improved movement of the lymph. I've never loved this analogy, but it's the trash system. It's there to sweep out all the old, the stagnant, the cellular waste, so that the
Yeah.
cells can reabsorb nutritious, dense waters,
Yeah.
oxygen, all of the things that they need. It's incredible. I want to touch on, let's see, am I going to get into frequency? Yes. So
Okay.
we talk about lymphatic flow and
Yes.
at least mentioned frequency, but I want you to break that one down in a way that practitioners can really understand. Frequency is new to me almost 2 years ago, and it was a concept that took me a hot second. So I'd love to
Got it.
hear that from you so we can further
Sure.
this part of the conversation.
Sure. One of the things that McWilliams concentrated on was this balance of energy and or frequency and water. And that conversation got me into following doctors like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Mark Hyman and Catherine Clinton, doctors who studied frequency. But what I started to realize was that you can't, when talking about the body, you can't talk about frequency without talking about the water. So the water is what carries the frequency. And then you think, well, wow, that makes sense. Water is an ultimate semiconductor of electricity. It carries electricity. But if we are electric beings, you can't talk about one without the other. That's what an EKG is, and a lot of the tests that they run, they're testing the flow of the frequency inside of the water. And so one of the things that really opened my eyes to that was that the machine that McWilliams had created was dual function. It had high frequency as the first part, and then microcurrent as the second part. And so one of that connected me to this whole cycle of, wow, okay, so think about a bathtub. And I always use this analogy, is the hair dryer in the bathtub. If you're sitting in a bathtub in water, and you're just sitting in the water and you plug in a hair dryer and you throw it in the bathtub, you will shock yourself, right? Probably to death. However, if the water in the bathtub is moving, it won't shock you because the water carries the frequency, which means your body doesn't short circuit it. And I was like, huh, that's absolutely right. That's why a lot of this, if you think about 5G and what we do with phones, we live in an atmosphere of water droplets. What is it that carries that electrical current? It's the water in the atmosphere. It's the same thing in the body. When you think about when something happens to a person and they use the defibrillator paddles, they aren't using that electrical current to pump a heart. The heart is flat like a liver. They are shocking the electrical current inside of the body, of which the speed of that current moves the water either quicker or slower, which then gets back to the neurological issues. It's still a water issue, especially when we're thinking about neurological issues, because the current that the synapses need to travel through is carried in the water. Everything is carried in that waterway we call the lymphs. And it is crucial that our frequency or our electrical current is flowing at a rate to keep the water flowing fast enough to feed us, allow us to breathe and talk and everything else that we do. So you're a healer too. And we're always like, yeah, you have to vibrate higher in order to get your body to a state of peace. Well, that's a biological, literal statement, because if the electrical current in your water is not high enough to carry the water at a speed that allows the water to feed and filter itself, you get sick.
So the microcurrent and the frequency is a tool that people would come to you for. And I believe, if I'm understanding right, there's another layer to it that we can do in between the times we're able to see the practitioner. And what is that?
Absolutely. So there are a couple of things, right? There are many things that I would say that people should do in the meantime that we oftentimes don't pay attention to. We're surrounded by other external electrical frequencies that can very much offset or rebalance our electrical current. Computers, phones, social media, TV, other people. So when I'm talking either to other practitioners or other people, one very important thing is being cognizant enough to know what you're allowing into your 6 feet of energetic aura, because that's the other thing we don't pay attention to. Yeah, the electricity is internal, but that electrical current still spans 6 feet outside of our physical body. And so we don't oftentimes pay attention to the people we hang around, to the things that people say, because that's vibrational and we can take that into. We don't pay attention to what we eat, what we're watching, what we're listening to. All of those things come into the control center of the body, which is the head. So I'm always telling people to pay attention to what they do, particularly practitioners, when they're finished working. Because as us for practitioners, part of what we do is we absorb energy from our clients. And if you don't reset that, recycle it, get rid of it, it then becomes a part of your flow until you're cognizant enough to get it out.
That's an interesting point you bring up, and a question I wasn't thinking I was going to ask you, but this comes up in a lot of educational courses that I am a part of or teach. How do you get rid of somebody's energy? How do you disconnect from that? What is your practice for that?
So that's an excellent question, and it's not just one thing; it's a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So one that is very, very that is very big for me is I laugh a lot. People miss the detox properties that laughing gives, not just for muscular stimulation, but for a detox, as exhalation is one of the 6 ways that we detox. So laughing is almost like a rebounder for your gut, right? Which allows you to detox and move the water, which resets your water. That's one thing.
Interesting.
2, so I have a list of things that I do. 2, when I get home from work, I do not answer or look at my phone for 2 hours. People also don't get that, unbeknownst to other people, and sometimes it's known to them, somebody's phone call can emit a type of energy for you that your energy is not ready to take on right then. Their emergency becomes your emergency. Their problem becomes your emergency. Nobody ever has an emergency in my life unless I consider it an emergency. That's very important. So I could look at my phone and see somebody calling me and I won't answer it, right? That's 2. 3, I use, and I know we talked, Jamie, I think once about things like the frequency scanners, and there are many on the market. I particularly use the Solex scanner, which using your voice in the quantum space actually resets your water for you. So those 3 things are crucially important. That scanner I use to reset my energy before I start to work, and then I reset it and clear it after work. But along with not answering the phone and along with laughing, and for me, traveling is also another one. My husband and I are outside of this country multiple times a year. And I'm a sun fanatic. I'm out in the sun. You'll find me in the sun all the time. So I tell people that they should find what they enjoy and then create that list for themselves. But that's important because most people don't even know what that list is.
Absolutely. We talked about this with a speaker named Emily, where part of becoming who we are authentically is first discovering who we are, what we like, what we enjoy. And then in another talk, a business plan set up for the masses doesn't mean it's right for you, which I know is kind of a different concept, but we brought it back full circle to the fact that we need to figure out what works for us, how we're scheduling our day, when we're setting time for rest, for vacation, in between clients. It is so important. I loved your answers for detox. I'm so glad that I did ask because they're unconventional compared to what we typically hear, I think. And yet they're readily available at our fingertips.
Yes, I always say that everything, if we really get the true function of the body, and I promise you this, I can teach, I'm not just going to say this, I'm teaching people this. Every single solitary thing the body needs to get to a state of wellness, it is either inside or attached to us. We don't need external tools. We don't need, if we really get the function of the body, and that's the way the body was created, everything we need to rebalance us is already in the body. We've just been disconnected on how to use it. Yeah. One of the things that my that my clients always laugh at me about, but I'm dead serious when I say this. When we think about what we think about, even in animals or even in movies, what's one of the strongest, most feared, healthiest animals in movies that we see? King Kong. And what does King Kong do a lot? He does this. He beats on his chest. That's a very, very under, that's a very underknown modality that we can do. It is and I'm very big on fists. Taking your fists and doing this across different places in your body is crucially detoxing for people because it heightens the frequency, which flows the water faster. And it's very easy to do. And if you know how to do it, I don't care where you are. You can be in the middle of the woods and detox your whole body simply by using your own natural frequency against itself to stimulate the body to open. But we've been programmed that we have to look for this trend and pay this money and do this. We don't. We don't.
That in itself is a whole different discussion. You're right. What we're trained to do, look for, seek out, but it's right here. It's our fist balled up in a percussive manner. And another moment that seems so simple, like, why didn't I connect the dots here? One of the founding techniques in massage is tapotement, right? For stimulation. And that's exactly what this is, just on a whole different level.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what's missing. People think that massage is because the system has said, "Oh, massage is a benefit. That's something that you do if you just want to relax," or but it's not. It's
Mm.
therapeutic in the idea of what it is. It is the movement and the stimulation of your lymphatic flow, particularly in places you're not paying attention to. The provider then handles that for you. And one of the things that I say leads to illness is our unawareness of our body. If you're not aware when your body is staying still internally, then that staying still creates a backup, which at some point they will call disease. The minute we're called to something, which is why I like the Solex scanner, because the Solex scanner points you to places where your body is slow in its water and you don't know it. But because we're electrical beings, there's a reason we're made up of electricity, salt, and water. The minute you think of something, you send an electrical current to that thing, changing its state. It is that simple. Wellness is a birthright.
That's right. This is a fascinating aspect of what you bring as a practitioner. So you've got the machine that has the combination of frequency and microcurrent, which is well understood, especially for estheticians. But then the scanner, I don't know the name of it, but I understand that what the scanner does is well, I understand what it does to this level, right? So
Sure.
please continue and correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
But it has the ability to scan the body through frequency and identify what is out of balance. Is that correct? Which then gives you a protocol or an area to focus on, correct?
So that's
Like,
absolutely
why
right.
do
So
we
what
not all have this?
Jamie, that's my question I ask people every day. So here's what, the name of the company is Solex, Solex, but the AO scan is what they use. And what it is a software that you and I are like, okay, so that's logic. And why isn't everybody using it? So what it does is it almost proves what I say about the water. So I say that every part of your life is functioned by the water. But Solex proves it because what you do is you speak for 10 seconds into the scanner, and your voice, your speech is representative of your entire body function, because what we hear in a voice is the evidence of the electrical current in the water, right? So
Interesting.
what
Yeah.
you do is you speak into the software based on the frequency coming through your voice. The scanner scans every single solitary system inside of your body, all the way down to the chromosomes, and it shows you where at that particular moment your water is not flowing optimally. And then it resets your water in the quantum space, because that's essentially where we live, right? And so you're always ahead of a problem. And it is, I've seen people have brought me a lot of things, but I have not seen a software be that correct, that on point. I scan myself every day. I make my supplements using that scanner. The stories that I could tell you are astounding, but it literally proves what I say about the water.
That's the really amazing part of that is I didn't realize you could get a device for your, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, that can just anybody purchase that from you, by the way? Okay, that's what I thought. The ones that I've always seen though have been at a practitioner and they're electrically charged. Same concept though. So you're going to hold two pieces of metal and you're the conduit, right? And it scans and it
Yes.
delivers. But the
Yes.
fact that it's pinpointing for you to tell you we're going to focus on the need today, or this supplement is missing it within the system is incredible. I feel like we could talk on this in itself and keep going.
Yeah.
I want to keep, I want, unfortunately, I say
Yes.
hesitantly, I want to bring it somewhere else to get the rest of what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
But, and if it needs to come back up, let it. But I think that, we just need to have another conversation at some
Yeah,
point to talk about that.
we
But
absolutely could.
let's, I want to talk about how we're going to do some things in a minute, but I
Sure.
want another layer of what you use. So tell us how
Sure.
the salt, the Himalayan salt, which you post about quite a bit. And so for
Absolutely.
some, it might be redundant, but share with us
Sure.
how you use the Himalayan salt and what it's doing.
Sure. So I actually use both now. I was using Himalayan salt initially until I got connected with someone who actually lives near the Dead Sea. And so now I use Dead Sea salt, which is amazing. But let me go back to the salt issue.
Can I ask you real quick, is
Of
that the
course.
same as Celtic salt, or is that yet a whole nother layer?
Very good question. Very excellent question. Different layer. So I'll
Okay,
start at this point and then go to Himalayan, Celtic, and Dead Sea and talk about the differences between all of them.
perfect.
So there is something that is missing intentionally from our education, and it is so badly missing that it is taking people off of this planet. We cannot talk about wellness, lymphs at all without talking about salt and electrical current. We are salt water beings. The 102 minerals that run through our lymph water make up a type of salt. There is a reason that the system has changed our ideology about salt because high mineral content salt is extremely healing. And so the 102 minerals that we are made up of salt. It's salt, right? Salt in high mineral concentration, like high mineral concentration salt, is anti everything. It is antibiotic, antibacterial, antiviral, antidiarrheal, antispasmodic. You can preserve with it. It is cooling. There is a reason that we were created as saltwater beings. When our minerals and the electrical currents are balanced in our water, we call that alkalinity. Yes, that's what alkalinity is. It's a balance of water, salt, and electrical current. We talk about sea moss a lot, but when it comes to salt, out of the 102 minerals that we are made of, 75 to 95 of those minerals are also contained in Himalayan salt. There are more in Dead Sea salt, which is why when we go to the Dead Sea, we float because the salt is balancing our natural salt in the water. So essentially, when you're using a Himalayan salt stone or a Dead Sea salt stone on a body, the heat that is carried in your blood activates the salt topically that instantly goes through the pores, which are lymph vessels, thinning out the blockage of salt underneath the skin, instantly causing the water to flow. So when people have psoriasis or eczema, the rash that's on top of the skin is salt. That's part of our minerals that are stuck in the skin. The difference between a Celtic salt and a different type of sea salt. Celtic salt is amazing, but Celtic salt is heavy high in magnesium, which is awesome and very necessary for the body. But Himalayan and Dead Sea salt have a higher quantity of minerals than Celtic salt does. So if you want to mix them, that's amazing. But the idea is the high mineral concentration in the salt causes our stuck salt, that sand, to instantly start to move, allowing the flow of the water.
Whole separate note, I was curious about the Celtic because if I feel off or I've had a long day or I'm just like, ugh, something as simple as taking, because I keep both Himalayan and Celtic, but I'll take a few grains of the Celtic, and I don't mind salt, and I'll just put them on the tongue, and I am telling you the instant transformation that
See?
I feel physically,
See?
energetically, emotionally, it's a boost.
Yes,
And so thank you for clarifying that
sure.
particular piece.
And that's
I
that magnesium in the Celtic salt. It's instant. It's instant.
And I have a sister, I don't want to get off track, but I'll just mention
Sure.
quickly that she took a trip and she was able to float in the Dead Sea. She
Oh,
went there. Isn't that incredible? It's going to happen for me someday. But
me too.
she
Me
left
too.
the States with, she'd had for years eczema and psoriasis, patchy, struggled with it, gone just from floating
See?
in
See?
the Dead Sea.
See?
It so incredible. And I know we have been programmed to be afraid of salt, sodium, high
Because they know
sodium
it.
based content, food, which of course we're not comparing apples to apples in the type of salt that is. So for us to shift the perspective into how healing the salt can be for us, for flow, for detox, for health, all of the things that we've been talking about.
And I will make a quick note on that because it's very important. And this is how people can make more of a connection. What they call blood pressure isn't a thing. Pressure doesn't run in the blood cells. Blood cells don't have nucleus in them. It's the water that runs through the blood that flows the blood. So when there is an imbalance of salt in the water that flows the blood, they will tell people that they have a pressure problem. Most people who have been diagnosed with what the system calls high blood pressure, don't have enough salt in their water to flow the blood.
Absolutely. And to piggyback just a hair off this, I feel like we could do this the entire time, by the way, but you mentioned you love the sun. I too, like, am not afraid of the sun. We respect the sun, but the sun and how it affects the mitochondria is also playing a piece of our quote unquote high blood pressure. It
Yes.
okay, let's keep moving because
Yeah.
we okay,
We could go on a
come
whole
back
nother,
next
we could have
week
a whole
for
nother
section
call.
2. Yeah, there's definitely more to come between the two of us, but in the future, we've got about just better than 10
Okay.
minutes. So now I want to shift to, okay, now what? I mean, in the most basic nutshell, we've covered quite a bit of ground. But if someone's listening,
Yes.
and whether this is a new topic to them, especially a spa practitioner that doesn't have the holistic lens,
Got it.
um, and they realize, oh, my body's stagnant. I am swollen. I am
Got
feeling
it.
moody. I am have brain fog, all of the things, psoriasis, you name it.
Got it.
What is the simplest place to start? What do we do now?
Very good question. So, very good question because they don't teach us this either.
Mhm.
Everything that affects what happens in the body, emotion, cognition, weight, uh, name something, everything starts in the head. Everything starts in the head. You cannot fix the body without fixing the head first. And there is a very, very important spot in the head that I always tell people to go to start to give themselves some clarity. And that start is behind the ears in what is called the mastoid sinus cavity. That sinus cavity is placed where it is because the filters that are here at the ears filter water to the brain from up top and the body down below. Jugular and carotid ears are in between. Vagus nerve is right underneath. Brain is in between. One of the most important things people can do to start to open themselves is just take their knuckles and massage behind the ears. And then after a couple of seconds, you can massage in front of the ears. You can use a salt rock on that same area. You can use a percussive device. And I always recommend people do that in the mirror, because if you do it real time, you will watch your entire body change, your head, your face, your body, and then get to a point where you can take time by yourself to literally assess what you give yourself. Are you stressed during the day? What do you eat? How much water do you drink? Do you actually exercise? Do you give yourself ideal, what I call alone moments? Lots of us don't realize that we, even though we love our spouses and whoever we may live with, when we're in the house with others, we're never alone. Yes. And 6 feet in a home is not a little bit of space. So, how much time do you actually sit by yourself or go and do something by yourself? Like, I like to love to walk by myself where nobody else is around, no dogs are around. I recommend that people keep the ears open, and then at least 2 to 3 times a week, assess what you are either giving or depleting your body. Do you give yourselves enough minerals, enough water? Your thought process should always be about what is controlling your water. That could be external or internal, or what you give it. But you have to open up the ears first to even know what you're thinking.
You are finishing our summit, and you have said the main theme that has started from the beginning and throughout, and awareness needs to happen.
Without a
We
doubt.
need to slow down long enough to be aware, to listen, to reflect. And I love how all of this is coming together. And again, solidifying this holistic lifestyle. You
Yeah.
can't have health without the movement. We're talking very specifically about lymph and what that needs and the flowing of waters, but internal waters. But you have to have movement. You have to have rest. You have to have nutrition. You have to have all of it. And slowing down, taking time for yourself, and being aware. So
And
now
I'll
let's
just
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing too. There's a reason, everyone, they created TV and the internet. There's a reason that frequency cuts off your own
Absolutely.
connection to your own internal frequency. And if you are not connected internally, your body can't heal. Your body was meant to heal internally. But if you're disconnected from it, that's an impossible space for you to get to.
We are distracted on so many levels.
Oh,
That's a
yes.
conversation in itself.
Yeah,
But coming to oneself, slowing down, reflecting, and being aware is where we can start from and make
absolutely.
these changes. Let's
Absolutely.
take it to the next level now, because I know that, especially for your audience and within a holistic lens of aesthetics, lymph is not new to us. So, where
Sure,
does somebody who's already doing detox or lymph work? What's a
sure.
deeper level most people aren't considering? What's the next step for them?
Got it. So one of the first things I'll tell people always is to assess your water. Yes. Many people, we move so quick that we don't understand. If you have a symptom, you have a heart palpitation, you have a pain, you have something that breaks out on your skin, give yourself a test. When you get to those moments, drink 8 to 10 glasses of water in that instant and watch what happens to your body. Most of us won't do that. We get so freaked out by the symptom, we don't understand what's happening to cause the symptom. Those symptoms are all caused by the non-movement of water. So when that's another reason you have to be cognizant of yourself, because you have to be aware enough to when your body is speaking. When your body's giving you a signal, a symptom is a signal. That signal means your water is either stuck, slowing, and or swelling into an area. So you have to help it. You give it more water, and then you assess what happens in that moment. It never fails. You just have to do it.
I swear these conversations are frankly a front row seat for me and just like me consuming information. And I hope everybody watching picks up obviously all of it too. That's why we're streaming it. But Of course. And yesterday we spoke with a woman named Star, who's
Hmm.
a nutritionist, and talks about eating your water because you're getting the water and the nutrients, the sugars and the good sugars and the salts and the minerals, etc. But here's the analogy she gave was you want to have water to act like a river to flush, to constantly move out and detox. But then you want water that is going to get locked into the cell. That's through the food, the nutrients. And so for you to now say, oh, you're experiencing this, have your 8 glasses of water. That's going to act like the waterfall that is just pushing through, moving things, detoxing, and getting it out of your body. Another small but significant aha moment to be like,
Yes.
holy shit, of course I can, and I can do this.
Yes, absolutely. And the body, I repeat, the body can never, ever, until the end of time, the body can't be wrong. It can't be wrong. It cannot lie to you ever. So if it is speaking, it speaks one language. That language is water. So if the water is stuck, it's requesting more water by giving you a signal. So you give it what it's asking for, water and motion.
Exactly.
But water creates motion. So you have to give it its water.
Okay, so now the question that it comes down to for
Yes.
those listening and absorbing this information, um, we of course want to turn around and have conversations in our treatment rooms, but I
Sure.
am big on working within our scope of practice too. So
Sure.
education, we're at the very end, we're going to talk about how to work with you, of course,
Sure.
and
Sure.
become really educated in this. But how
Sure.
can practitioners start whether educating their clients or doing something within a scope that is still beginner level that could be beneficial to their clients without what is this information that's not going to be overwhelming? Where do we start, I guess, is the
Got it. So
question.
what I like to tell people to do, and it's very simple, but people just don't do it. I suggest to providers that when they're talking to their clients, to literally have their clients Google what the lymph vessels look like in the body. When we're taught about including doctors, and my parents are doctors, so I get the limited scope for them. Doctors don't even know the full scope of the lymph vessel system. They're always thinking about lymph nodes. And even practitioners, we're taught about the lymph nodes, the lymph nodes. The lymph nodes are the trash receptacles in a system that depend on the flow of the lymph vessels, not the nodes. So I tell providers when you're talking to your clients and you want your clients to understand how the body functions, tell them to go Google what the lymph vessels in the body look like and where the lymph vessels are located in the body. That will change immediately their understanding of what is happening in the body. And at the very least, it will open their minds for more questions.
Curiosity. I think that's a really big thing. And then you're going to also hone in on an area that is either most important to you or piques your interest the most, and it's going to bring you down paths that pertain and speak to you specifically as well.
Absolutely.
Curiosity has come up throughout this conversation as well. Be curious,
And that's,
investigate.
I'm so glad you said something about be curious because for me, it's always about thinking. Ask a question. In school, we were taught to ask who, what, when, why, where, and how. They don't ask those questions anymore. But a simple question or what you just said in curiosity, curiosity is an electrical synapse activation. If
It
you are not
is.
curious and you're not asking questions and you're not doubting and you're not finding any more information, your brain is atrophying, which will make your body sick. All we got to do is be curious. That's perfect. Curiosity is everything because it causes the synapses to fire.
I am also thinking that something within scope would be the use of Himalayan, or now that I know, the Dead Sea Salt stones. So share
Oh,
about that
absolutely.
as we're winding down.
Got it. Absolutely. Those are so effective that I can't even, they just keep proving themselves over and over. And I use the testimonies of people who have gotten them from me. I have a woman who said her daughter's nightmares went away because she was holding the salt in her hand while she sleeps. I have people who have said full body arthritis has gone away, their skin issues have gone away, but that just keeps proving what I'm saying, that the body is made of salt. So if there's an imbalance or a slow in the water, salt gets thick. We're just thinning the salt. So for people, when I was telling you to massage around the ears, you could take a salt stone and literally just hold. You don't even have to do a lot of work. The body is already in a state to heal itself. It just needs a little boost sometimes. And that's what the salt is. Even for pressure issues, pain, I mean, even bunions, all of these things are a buildup of the salt in the lymph vessels. So the salt unblocks the blockage of the salt in the body, symptoms go away.
Yeah. And I mentioned that was something that I saw you do and immediately started implementing. And so for me, if I am doing therapeutic massage and I'm working with somebody, obviously I know usually where their symptom is. And so to put a piece of salt, so if this is the calf, like I'm placing it underneath where that pain symptom is. If it's a facial and we're not even working therapeutically the body, I still place it under the knees, in the auxiliary, sometimes on the abdomen, for that flow to happen. I warm them up. They feel so good going on, but that's within our
Absolutely.
scope. And the
Yes.
curiosity behind that is like, okay, I want to be able to talk now to my clients about what this is doing, which just leads you further down understandings and paths. And
Which is awesome that you say that, Jamie, because most people know, or at least people that get massages know, oh my God, when they use the hot stones, it feels amazing. But all you need to do is connect them to why it feels amazing. The tightness in the muscle is a stagnation of water and salt. So when you're using the salt along that area, you are uninflaming. That's what the salt does. It uninflames because inflammation is stagnant water. And so when in that scope, like you say, just connecting them to the why they feel better sets their curiosity into another stratosphere.
before we have to close, the last thing I'll share as an example, as I was watching one of your videos in live time or in your videos live
Yeah.
time, facial sculpting is a big deal for a lot of estheticians, but I literally watched you hold a salt stone and massage it around as you were talking, and your face shape changed. Like the puffiness, like which was not, it didn't look like it was even there, just looking at you went like drained away.
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
sculpting that came in that little bit of time
Yeah.
was incredible.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this then. Is there anything, I know we could continue talking for hours and hours, but is there
Sure.
anything that you feel like you would want to share or touch upon that we might not have, or something to leave us with before we learn how to work with you?
I think that we pretty much covered what was so important. And I think it's awesome because your whole entire summit was everything people needed in pieces, and then it was all tied together. So I just think for most, I will say this, for most, we have to be comfortable putting ourselves first. And I say that because in this particular culture that we have, it's always like, oh, you can't be selfish and you can't think of yourself first and you can't do this. How are you going to give to anyone else if you aren't putting yourself first? And what I mean by that is not in an arrogant way to put others down, but you have to create your own pedestal and be obsessed with yourself enough to know every time your body is giving you a sign. You have to be so connected to Jamie or so connected to Camille that as soon as Camille or Jamie says anything internally, you're already there. But that requires that you have to make yourself first. You have to, in order to be able to give anything to anybody else. you have to understand what that means first. So, be selfish, be loving, but be selfish with yourself, put yourself on that pedestal to get you to a point that you can use yourself as a role model for others. I think that's very important, and we are turned away from that now. And I think it's crucial that we go back there.
I think so too. And that was reiterated with Carol Ann this morning, where she took the four pillars of health through an Ayurvedic lens. One of the legs of the table, as she called it, because there's four pillars, is of course love, but bringing back to oneself, so that you're putting yourself on a pedestal. You are being selfish. You are taking care of yourself, because if you are not healthy, if you are not in a
Yes,
state of ease, the opposite
yes,
is dis-ease,
yes,
the opposite of
absolutely,
health. And so we
absolutely.
do need to get rid of that societal,
Yeah.
programming that it's selfish, and
And
really understand.
the power of the body, the energetic power, the light that we are inside is so unbelievably powerful. Most people miss it because they are programmed by the society who intentionally wants them to miss it. Because once we're connected internally, there isn't an external force that can control what happens to us. But if we're not in control of it, the other frequencies are going to be, and that's part of what's happening. So we have to get back to that inner state. We have to
Say it again louder. Absolutely. That was the
we have
best way
to.
to wrap this conversation.
Yeah, we
And
have to.
thank you. This was a beautiful ending to this 2-day summit. I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate you, your time, all of this information that you're willing to lend us.
Absolutely,
How
thank you so
can
much.
how can the few of us, a few, where do we find you? Sorry, I lost my words
So
there.
we, so I am CEJ Images across all social media platforms. My website is cejimages.com. People can definitively come get certified in LFD. Listen, LFD is not regulated to people who are already in the healing space.
That is a
What
great
I
point to
do
make.
with, yeah, it's
Yes.
not, because we were all born as healers. We were all born the same way, just some of us don't connect to it like others of us that do in the healing space. So my certification is designed to be a deprogramming of the information that keeps us weak, and a learning in real time of what healing looks like. So you do not have to be a practitioner already to be certified in LFD. You just have to be somebody who wants to learn what healing actually is. And I conduct 4.5-day certifications 3 times a year. My next one's in July. Then one after that is in November. I will throw certain master classes out there on social media. I just did a 2-day master class on the breast. Sometimes I do diabetes and blood and all this other stuff. And so I always push them out to all social media. And I also have memberships. I have a monthly, both core or VIP membership, where I am literally your wellness provider in your home. And I'm either meeting with you twice or every week for either you or family. So whatever it is that you want to learn, my goal with LFD is to be able to teach it to enough people so they experience it. We're being told so much information that does nothing but proves damage, but we're not open to what actually makes us better, but it's because we're not taught. So anybody who's open and wants to learn can come to me and learn any way that you want, but you can choose that. And there are multiple ways to do that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Have been talking a lot as an esthetician from behind the table, but whether you're a massage therapist, esthetician, or not even yet in the spa industry, to have a want or an eagerness to help
Yeah.
in somebody's healing journey is all you need to be successful in
Yeah.
that particular modality. So thank
Yeah.
you for clarifying that.
Of course. Of course.
Also, a huge thank you, because Camille has also given us a little a code
Oh,
AFF
yes.
for $200 off this certification course. That's very generous. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
And as has everybody else, Camille's entire bio, links to her socials, her course links are all on the Holistic Spa Alliance website.
Thank
And
you.
so please search it out there. But again, we went over in time, but thank you for hanging in.
It's
And
fun. Yes, I enjoyed it. This was amazing. So we're
as did
probably going
I.
to get on and do some, we should probably do some other Zooms like this because
Oh,
clearly there's a
guaranteed.
lot the two of us can share.
That is absolutely coming, by the way. So be prepared.
Got it.
And thank
I'm
you
ready.
to everybody catching this live or on replay. I appreciate your support. And again, Camille, thank you.
Thank
Until
you,
next time.
Jamie. All right. Have a great one. Thank you so
You too.
much.
Bye-bye.